The time I lost my rich roommate's bike. If anyone in NYC knows how expensive rent is, you also know how crucial it is to have decent roommates. No one wants to live with pricks. Personally, I hate living with people I don't know, but sometimes, you don't have a choice. My last roommate seemed like a decent enough guy. There wasn't anything particularly wrong with him, except maybe his borderline obsession with work. He wasn't much of a conversationalist during the week because his hours were insane. Late nights, early mornings, it was like he never stopped working. But weekends? Weekends were a different story. He'd loosen up, and we'd actually hang out. Oh, did I mention he was loaded? He'd go clubbing every weekend, and the few times I went with him, it was like stepping into a different world. Bottle service, tables reserved just for us. It was like rolling with a celebrity. Unfortunately, that kind of VIP treatment didn't extend to his personality outside the club. Here's the truth. My roommate was a nightmare when it came to basic living. He put his name on everything in the fridge but still helped himself to everyone else's food. He threw out anything that looked bad, even if it wasn't, and never, ever did his dishes. It was a mess, literally and figuratively. So, when he finally decided to move out, there was a collective sigh of relief. We were all pretty happy to see him go. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. He wasn't just moving out, he was going back to Japan. One day, out of the blue, he asked me to hold on to his bike while he was gone. Being the nice guy I am, and because I love biking, I said sure. Honestly, it felt like a nice gesture on his part, like we were maybe ending things on a positive note. So, I started using the bike, a lot. I rode it to work sometimes, and for a while, I didn't hear from him at all. It was like he vanished from our lives, and we assumed he'd moved on. Then, one day, the inevitable happened. If you've ever lived in NYC, you probably know where this is going. I parked the bike on the street because, unfortunately, that's where the bike racks were. And like clockwork, the bike got stolen, or at least, someone tried to steal it. The wheel was busted, and the frame was damaged. It was basically a pile of bent metal. I took it to a bike shop, hoping for a quick and cheap fix, but the repair estimate came out to around $500. I was floored. I didn't have that kind of money, so I took it to a few other shops, and each quote was the same, if not worse. No matter how hard I tried, there was no way around it. Months passed, and I ended up just paying to store this broken bike, hoping the situation would just disappear. Then, out of nowhere, I get a text from him asking for the bike back. I'd honestly forgotten about it by then, but I explained the whole situation. I told him, look, I didn't mean for this to happen. It was an accident, an act of God. Bikes don't come with insurance, after all. I offered to slowly pay him back for the repair and even showed him the quotes I got from the shops. I figured he'd understand. After all, this guy spent hundreds of dollars on bottle service every weekend like it was nothing. But nope. Instead of being cool about it, he said I had to pay for a whole new bike. No consideration for the situation, no room for negotiation. He just laid down the law. I tried to reason with him, but it was like talking to a brick wall. He wasn't interested in hearing my side, and honestly, I should have known better. He was always the type of guy who decided what was right, and that was the end of the conversation. I even asked around, talked to my friend's dad, who's a lawyer. Unfortunately, there wasn't much I could do. It was a crappy situation all around, and everyone agreed it sucked, but there were no legal options. Still, I offered to pay him back over time, but he wouldn't hear it. He stopped talking to me, cut ties with all of us, and just moved on. Then he went further. He started texting the rest of us, claiming we were all ganging up on him. I couldn't believe it. He played the victim, like he always did, acting as if we were all conspiring to screw him over. It was classic him. He had this way of flipping situations around to make himself look like the innocent party, even when he was the one being unreasonable. He conveniently forgot how he treated all of us in the apartment, like we were beneath him. The guy couldn't even take responsibility for his own dishes, but now he was trying to spin the story to make us the villains. It wasn't just about the bike. It was about his inability to see things from anyone else's perspective. He had money, sure, but he lacked any sort of empathy. Maybe that's why he needed all that bottle service, to feel important, even though deep down, he was as shallow as the clubs he frequented. As much as I hate to admit it, the bike situation showed me just how little our friendship really meant to him. It wasn't a huge loss, though. In the grand scheme of things, I lost a bike, and he lost friends who genuinely tried to get along with him. And while I may not have handled it perfectly, at least I tried to make things right. Sometimes, that's all you can do. Make the best out of a bad situation and move on. So, to anyone who's ever been in a similar situation, just know you're not alone. We've all had a roommate horror story, and this one just happens to involve a stolen bike, a $500 repair bill, and a rich guy who couldn't let go of a grudge. Life in New York, am I right?